What's up, everybody? Welcome to a wonderful night here in the tri-state area, Philadelphia, New Jersey, Delaware. You got it all, Pennsylvania, too. It's Dave Gluckner. It's Marc Thomas. You know who we are. We are Fourth and Go. Philly 4 for 4. And the Go gives you so much more. Tonight's a part of that Go. Yeah, it's NFL, but it's NFL draft. We're going to step outside. We'll talk Eagles, but we'll talk all teams here. A shoe finally dropped. We'll talk about that right before we get into the draft. And then with all that said, let's have some fun tonight. So if you got a chance, drop in the comments. Tell us what's going on. Tell us what you think the Eagles will do. And we'll definitely react, rise, and shine. Marc, what's up, bud?
What up? What up? We can say it's a winning Wednesday without any worries. The Phillies, they take care of business tonight against the Mariners. The Sixers, only team in the NBA to sweep. They've been, good since Saturday, so that's good to see. Thank you to Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks for extending the series to 6. Meaning the Sixers won't play again until Monday, so Joe can rest up that knee. Things are good, but tonight, we'll get to that stuff later. But draft. We always love doing our season predictions, but the draft show is always one of those you get to see what you hit on, what you think. It's always fun when we get to predict things. I think it's like one of the best parts about what we do, like the fun of it, because there's no gun to our head if we're wrong. Like, it is what it is. So it's, but you get to take an educated guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. That's what we love about this. And we'll definitely have some difference of opinions, I know, going forward, but all good, and it'll be fun. And we'll both have our reasons why we go certain ways. But before we get to the NFL draft tonight, we're going to do this in a little step-by-step process. We're going to talk about the big trades that just happened. Aaron Rodgers going to the New York Jets. After that, we'll go to Philadelphia Eagles and where we think and what they'll do with their 2 first-round picks. Might not give away names yet, but just kind of what we're thinking, where they'll posture, and then we'll jump right into the top 10, and we'll get into that. So let's start with the name himself, Aaron Rodgers, jumping to the Jets, having his opening press conference today, really lauding Joe Douglas and some others for, pulling off a team that he thinks has championship caliber aspirations. So it's finally done, the worst kept secret. Yeah. And I'll tell you, at first when I saw the package, I was like, the Jets are crazy. But then I think they forgot to say that they were flipping first-round picks. Yeah. And I was like, okay, now we're getting into something probably – right on the right line. I mean, he's 40 years old. That's what we have to remember. It really looks like it's going to be somewhere in the 2 second-round pick range, and a flip of the first and another, small pick in the back. I think it's good. I think it's good on both sides, and I think it's gives the Packers that freedom to now go after what they need to, but also let Love have the show, right? Jordan Love. And then I think for the Jets, you get this 1-2 year window to get it done now.
And for the Jets, it helps that, it doesn't completely kill the stock of Zach Wilson. Like, obviously he didn't have a great start, but this is somebody that he looks up to. They do have some kind of relationship. I don't think you're going to get the same cold-bloodedness that was in Green Bay when, Rodgers was pissed off about the fact that they drafted Jordan Love, which kind of rightfully so. I didn't blame. Like, his actions don't help. Don't help. But at the same time, like, you're just coming off an MVP season and you didn't help him you never get him offensive weapons in the first round. Look, they hit on Jair Alexander a couple years ago and stuff like that. But for the most part, like, they don't really hit on these other first round guys that they're getting. And it's just like, kind of like, I'd be a little irritated too. They don't spend the money in free agency. He's kind of had to make it work. Again, I'm not making excuses for him, but looking at the logistics of it and the optics of it, they really didn't help him. And I feel like they probably squandered a Super Bowl chance or two in his whole tenure. So, in my opinion, that's I know. I remember you and Drumheller, and I get it. I'm not defending Rodgers here, but I kind of understood where he was coming from in that. Where this, I feel like he's like, I know I got the job. I know this is me for the next 2 or 3 years, and I can help the kid out to move my legacy on when I leave.
Yeah. So for me, when you say they squandered a chance, I say it's he squandered a chance. He's a complete loser. He sits back there, mopes. I mean, you have the San Francisco 49ers. Like, they went 13-3, 3 or 4 straight seasons. They won seeds and blew home field advantage. Guy played the Niners and half of Jimmy Garoppolo in the last year in the playoffs, and it scored what, like 7 on the first drive, 3 the rest of the game. Like he's
Sure.
just
No, I know, but before that, like 3 years plus. Like, I mean, look, I'm just saying you get him a little bit better. I mean, I know he had Devontae Adams, and I know
he's
it's
13-3. How much better are you asking them to be? He was 13-3 with home field advantage.
I'm just saying it's both sides.
I think they had a good team, and I always think they did. But the Rodgers backers, and I know you're not necessarily one, will say he didn't have enough weapons. Okay, great running game, great offensive line, Devontae, like you said. But hey, man, I'm going to enjoy one thing. I'm going to enjoy watching this guy take down the New York Jets because he's going to do it. There's no doubt about in my mind he is not beating the Bills. The Dolphins are still a tough team too, and he's not beating Chiefs, the Bengals. I mean, we can go down the list here. It's a tough AFC.
It is AFC for sure.
And all it takes is a little bit of adversity, and that guy will be on the back pages of New York. It's not Green Bay and whatever they got out there, the Gazette. This is the New York Post, the New York Times. Like this he's under a different spotlight, and I think he's going to fold under it. I really do.
I'm interested to see just because they have talent on both sides of the ball, and it really is kind of, I think, the right move. I think the Jets didn't really have any other options, but it had to happen, and I think it works out. We'll see. Again, I don't predict they'll win the Super Bowl. I don't think they're a legit Super Bowl contender, but they're up there. They're making noise. Top 4 or 5 team in the AFC.
Let me caveat all the things I'm saying about how he'll eventually fail, because that's who he is.
Right.
It's the right move for the New York Jets.
Mm-hmm.
They are not winning with Zach Wilson. They are not winning with Mike White. They are not winning with anybody else out in free agency. So this is the move you got to shoot for. And I'm good with it. I'm like, I get it. I just know this guy. I just know. I think we all know 19 years. But we'll see. We'll see. But what it does do is it actually makes the NFC even a little bit better for the Eagles, right? I know the Packers didn't make the Super Bowl, the playoffs last year, but in the end, they were a formidable team the 3-4 years before that. And I think injuries were a big deal last season. So, they almost made that late run at the playoffs. They were close.
Yeah, they were. I mean, they played us tough, and, we knocked Rodgers out of the game. So who knows what would have happened had he stayed in the game.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Ultimately, in the end, it does kind of loosen up Green Bay a little bit. And I mean, Love looked great in the game against the Eagles, but, can he do that for 17 games for his first season out? We'll see. But it definitely makes the NFC maybe even a little bit lighter of a load, because the Eagles are going to have a tougher schedule next year. So big trade, big news. They flipped picks in the first round. Like we mentioned, picks 13 and 15 get flipped. But now we can start talking about the NFL draft, which kicks off tomorrow. And 3 full days of fun? Or is it 4 now?
Well, it's the first round is tomorrow night.
Right.
Second and third are Friday night. And then Saturday is 4 through 7.
Yeah, there's where it is. And it's in Kansas City this year, right?
Correct. That is correct.
Yeah, so very interesting. The Super Bowl champs get to host the draft now too. So, obviously, spotlight on Kansas City. Good for them. They earned it. But we'll see how they carry the torch, because it's been very successful in a lot of cities, including Philadelphia.
One of the most
over the past few years. And, of all things, that's where Patrick Mahomes got drafted, right? It was in the Philadelphia draft. So there's always some symmetry. But talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, they hold pick 10 and 30 in tomorrow night's first round. And I just want to get a feel, like, I don't think we truly know anything. And Howie's even said it. Like, he doesn't know what people are doing. They don't know what he's doing.
He's playing poker.
Yeah, and what's your sense of where you think they'll end up? Do you think they stay still? Do you think they try and, trade one, trade both, trade back? What's your feeling that'll happen tomorrow night?
So I think they're probably like 2 players, maybe 3, that are there that they're like, okay, we're staying here at 10. If not, I don't see them trading up for a player. I know a lot of people think like, oh, if Jalen Carter makes it to 6, like they'll trade up or something like that. I don't think that's in the cards. Howie did make a joke the other day on one of his press conferences saying like, we have 12 picks next year.
That's it.
10. We might be down to 10, but I don't. That's almost too obvious. And I just don't see Howie as a guy who trades up.
Right. I agree with that.
Give up assets. Like, and I don't see it unless like, like Will Anderson slides to like 8 and they like have a feel like something like that. I'm just guessing out there if they have a really strong value and they didn't think somebody was going to get as far down as they did. But there are a couple quarterbacks in this draft, so it definitely like shortens the board a little bit for them because I think 4 of them are going before we were there. So I think they stay at 10. I really do. Almost ideally, I think it would be great if they could trade back and do more. And I know we'll get into what we think they could do or couldn't do. It would be nice to see that if they could like get it, somebody who's desperate. But I don't think the board and where people are positioned, it really works out to where that they can get another second rounder because that's what it would have to be. You would have to be somebody who thinks they have a legit shot at quarterback and a quarterback who fell, like somebody's too far back, and a quarterback slides to about the 10 spot. That's where I think you get a second round pick. So, it'll be interesting to see, but I don't think that the board lays out that way. With this draft, it's great that they have 2 picks, obviously. It's always good when you have 2 first. It doesn't matter the draft. But it's not the absolute. There's some good prospects, but it's really not like the best draft to have this in.
I just want to jump on a couple of your points there.
First,
I do think you have some good points. I don't think they move up. I'm with you. That's not Howie's style. So, and from the other perspective of looking at next year, because of all the players they lost in free agency this year, a lot of compensatory picks come in. Sure. So you're right. They're going to be loaded next year. Now, will they be all high picks? No. But a lot of compensatories, they could possibly get in the second round and the third round picks, which are still very valuable. Other point being here, I think, the signing of Jalen Hurts and where they're at with the cap, it's important to understand that they're going to have to start using these picks to get players that are productive, right, on cheaper deals.
Sure.
So I do think they need to hit on these. And the best way to hit on these is probably keep a top 10 pick, right? You got a better chance of that being a successful player than a pick in the 20s. Now, with that said, I do think they might slide back a little bit. That's where I think he'll look at a couple of the moves and say, hey, I could probably fall back to 14, 15, still get a group of guys I want. If he doesn't see anything around there, I don't think he goes further. And I do think they keep pick 30 unless, like you said, they can drop back somewhere in the early second round, top 5, 10 picks, and grab another like early third from that one. So they'll try and maneuver, and I think they'll trade one of them, but not both.
No, I absolutely don't think they'll trade both. I think so. From what I'm gathering from you is you think 10 is more of a possibility of a trade back.
I do think 10 is a higher possibility. Like if they trade back to 15, 16, they're going to be like, all right, cool, we get this guy. I feel good at 30. Right. I think, this is the year that, remember, they lost a first round pick. That's the Miami Dolphins, right?
Right.
And that's why there's 31 picks in the first round, not 32. Yeah. So they've actually gone up in a little value. I think they're willing to hold on to 30 this year if they trade 10.
Right. See, I think they're more likely to move out of 30.
Okay.
I think there's going to be, they have like 1 or 2 guys that's going to be there at 10 that they're like, you know what, we couldn't find anything. Because my thing is about them being able to move back, I don't think there's really anybody who's itching to move up into their spot.
Yeah.
I think those 4 quarterbacks go. I don't know if anybody is really making a big move up to draft Hendon Hooker. I just don't. I don't see it. One of those 4 quarterbacks would have to slide hard.
Yeah,
and I just don't know if that's going to be the case.
I like it. Looking here, I mean, the Eagles really only have 6 picks this year, so I think one of them will definitely turn into 2 picks. But I think it'll turn into 2 picks this year. I just, like you said, with a lot next year.
They need those picks. I mean, they need picks right now.
Yes.
They have 12 next year, but they do need to fill some voids this year.
Yep, absolutely. So, looking at that, I think we can jump into the NFL draft here. I'm going to pull up a quick board, and I think we should just get going and start seeing who we like and who's going to go where. And I say, go ahead. Yeah. This is what we'll do. We're going to both pick from each spot, okay? Not like you pick one, I pick 2. We're both going to pick. from the first spot, and then we're both going to pick from second. And eventually, you're going to see how we definitely differentiate. So we'll open up our draft, the fourth and go 2023 NFL draft, and the Carolina Panthers are on the clock. And I'll let you, Mark, lead off. I think we're probably in the same spot, but let us know who you think the Panthers are going to draft.
Bijan Robinson. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
No, there was a lot of noise coming out that they weren't really sold on who they were going to go with. And there was even recently, Will Levis came out and said that, or somebody leaked out that he's been telling family that, the Panthers told him they're going to take him number one. That's not going to be the case. This is all line season. Look, if you're the Panthers, you don't make that trade up to one without really knowing. Like, I know they said that there was the thought like, oh, they could go draft any of them. I think Bryce Young is the guy. I think besides his size, he's the complete package. I think he's your best shot with the most potential. For me, it's Carolina Panthers going up to take Bryce Young.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's Bryce Young. Then not much more to add there. I mean, I think his odds are somewhere like they might be minus 500 now. I think a lot of teams understand where Carolina is going to go. You're right. It's a little different than what Frank Reich has had in his toolbox in recent years. It's been big bodies. Now he's going big arm. And I think it's the right pick. I watch a ton of college football. Alabama quarterbacks have been better in the recent past, but still there's that doubt a little bit about him. Like you said, there's a doubt a little bit about size, and then this kid's a winner, has heart, and will just show up every week and give you all he got. And I like him. I like him a lot. I think it's Bryce Young for me too. I think he is the best quarterback in the draft, but I won't be surprised. This draft kind of mirrors a little bit of what we had in the T-Law draft. 5 quarterbacks in the top, 12 that year. We had Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence. We had Justin Fields. We had Trey Lance.
Down to 20. Yeah, Trey Lance was 3.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it was Lawrence, Wilson, Lance.
They were and then Fields.
Fields, though.
He was 11.
Was he 11? Oh, yeah, the Bears traded up with the Jets. That's why.
Yeah. And then I think, you still had some.
Mac Jones went 20.
Yeah. And then, even later, and we'll see him this year, Kyle Trask will be interesting to see how he does with Tampa. But it's very similar to that. We're going to see, and out of that group, is Fields the second best now? Maybe, quite possibly, because Lance has never got on the field. So it's going to be a really interesting draft. And you could get, your favorite quarterback could easily be not the next team's favorite. So it's really interesting. There's not a real favorite, but I think Bryce Young has taken over that. So I'm with you. I'll go Bryce Young, number 1. And then I'll take the pick in the second pick here. And it's the Houston Texans, where for now, let's just say they sit still. But a lot of news, everything I've been reading, you can go to any website of your choice, and it's not going to be quarterback, it looks like. I'm going to go Houston Texans, take Will Anderson, the most disruptive pass rusher in this draft. I know Tyree Wilson is also a very good pass rusher from Texas Tech, but Will Anderson was someone that was on the Heisman radar, just 2 years ago in preseason Heisman. He's fantastic. He didn't have quite the season he had back in 2021, but he was still great. And I think he's going to be great in the NFL. Texans, especially with D'Amico Ryans as head coach, Will Anderson.
See, this is what I don't understand. The Texans have been putting out there they want to trade out of 2. They're at 2. They could have had 1. I don't buy any of it. I don't buy any of it, and I don't understand, especially with the fact that they have 2 first. I think CJ Stroud is a guy who is definitely who could potentially be the number 1 overall pick. You're Houston. You have Davis Mills as your starting quarterback, right? I mean, when are you going to get a quarterback if you don't get one now? There's not a free agent falling off a tree. Are you waiting next year for Caleb Williams? I really don't understand the reasoning into why not. I mean, if you go with Davis Mills, I mean, you're going to have a similar season. Like, I know D'Amico Ryans is a good coach and everything like that, but you might even take yourself out of a top 5 spot, and then you still don't have a quarterback. To me, I think it's all smoke, hoping that somebody up in the top half of the draft, is really desperate for somebody, but I don't think there is. I don't think there's any smoke that way. To me, it's CJ Stroud. I think you have an opportunity to get a franchise-altering quarterback. I think you got to take it.
All right. I'm probably not as big on CJ as some others, but I see it. I see, I see a body. I see a big guy, a big arm. Can he reel in some of the, mishaps he has? I hope so, because he could be someone really special in the NFL. But I still have a little bit of concerns about him. And I think it sounds like the Houston Texans might as well. But I'll pass the third pick over to you, assuming Arizona stays pat, who you have the Cardinals selecting with Jonathan Gannon as their new head coach.
Well, funny you say that. So, yes, there's been a lot of chatter that, the Cardinals are trying to field calls, I guess, trying to see if anybody's going to buy on the quarterbacks. I don't think anything's going to happen with that. I think they are going to stay at 3. I think they are going to go defense with our man, Jonathan Gannon, JG here. But with that being said, I'm going bold here because we saw what the Eagles defense did with a really good interior pass rush. I know you mentioned Tyree Wilson, but I'm going Jalen Carter here. I think they're going to look past, especially like a guy like Jonathan Gannon. I think they're going to look past his off-field issues, and I think that Jonathan Gannon is desperate, and they're hoping that they have a monster up the middle, which we've had in the past. Obviously, like you look at Fletcher Cox, you look at, we drafted Jordan Davis, a Georgia, D tackle. Jalen Carter's supposed to be a monster. If you take away the off-field stuff, he's an elite pick, and he's a guy who can disrupt. And I think they're going to build that defense from inside out. So to me, an interior defensive lineman with his skill is there for the picking. And I think he's going to go with the same philosophy that they did in Philly. So to me, it's Jalen Carter.
All right. So we will be different for the second of 3 picks. Yep. A lot of reasons I'm not against what you're saying, but they lost J.J. Watt to retirement last year. The year before they lose Chandler Jones. They're weak at the DN position. They're really weak in the secondary. That's a spot where if they do trade down, you're probably going to see them, look for others like Witherspoon or Christian Gonzalez. But assuming they stay in this position, get no takers, I'm going to say they go Tyree Wilson here. He's really leaped up the boards. And I think there's still that little – Jalen Carter goes, and he goes in the top 9 or 10. But I think some teams are definitely a little worried. And I think the Cardinals with the new coach want a little bit more of a – and it's not that Jalen Carter doesn't have a good personality or isn't a good teammate, but he's got baggage. I think it's easier to go with Wilson and easier to build from that outside in. So I'll go Tyree Wilson.
Okay.
Which brings us to a key pick in the draft, right? And at least for me, and I'm sure it does on yours, but I'm going to go with Indianapolis Colts here. And, man, a lot of people out there, I think we know they're going quarterback. Everybody knows they're going quarterback. They got no other choice. In my opinion, they don't want to be up here again. That's not their plan. And when they have been up here, they hit. Like they did hit on Luck. And they obviously on Manning, that was all the way up at 1, but they think they can hit on another. So for that reason, I think they pass on C.J. Stroud. And I think they end up going Will Levis. I just feel like that's kind of in the, Ballard kind of Irsay kind of, playbook. So I feel like, he's not too far down the road from Kentucky. So I'll go Will Levis here with Indianapolis Colts.
Is it Levis? I didn't know if it was Levis or Levis.
I've heard both. I've heard both. I heard Levis on ESPN earlier, but then when I was watching college this year, I heard Levis. So, yeah.
Right. Well, we're back on the same side of the ball. We went 2 picks in a row with having different picks, but I agree with you that Will Levis will be the Colts pick. I agree. It's a very Colts pick for their quarterback.
Yeah.
I think for them, like you made a great point. They don't want to be there again. Anthony Richardson, I think in their eyes is probably a project, and they're not certain of but the thing is his ceiling is so high.
It is.
But I don't think they want to take that chance. I don't think they want to wait on the ceiling.
No, I'm with you. And I think, you look at it, really their starting quarterback right now is who? Is it Minshew? I don't know. It's a couple all fringe quarterbacks, and you can't bring in Anthony Richardson to learn under fringe quarterbacks. I just don't. Right. To me, you already took Stroud. So for me, it's Stroud or Levis here. Right. I'll go Levis just because it feels like a Colt pick, like you said.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
All right, with the 5th pick in the NFL draft, we move to another polarizing team, one that can go so many different directions, and it's the Seattle Seahawks. Off to you.
I'm stuck because I think Anthony Richardson does make sense here with Seattle. With Geno, because Geno's got a 1-year deal. It's a 1-year deal, even though it says for 3.
Yeah.
But I think they kind of like the chemistry that they have with Geno right now, and I think they're going to take their chances trying to build the rest of the team. This is where I think that Tyree Wilson comes off the board and ends up in Seattle.
That does feel like a Seahawks type of player.
Yep.
Too bad he's already off my board, but I get it with Pete Carroll and his defensive mindset, first and foremost, and the fact that they probably feel a little safer now with Geno there. And don't they have a later first-round pick too, if I remember correctly, where maybe a guy like Hendon Hooker could come into play for them?
Because that's let me see. Yeah, they're at 20.
Yeah, so that's how I feel. I feel like while they could try and hit one out of the park here with a quarterback, and I got Stroud still there, I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to take their chances and build with one of these great defensive interior players. And I do think I think about the days of DK Metcalf, and I think there were some concerns about DK's off field and personality and how would he fit. And Pete Carroll rips off his shirt and tries to show him his body and like, I'm as big as you. And he bonds with players like that. He's had some questionable players. He had the Garrett Blunt, I thought, back in the day. No, that was from Oregon. But he had Marshawn Lynch, obviously. He had some players that he was okay with taking a risk. Yeah. He's going to take a risk with Jalen Carter here. Yeah. I'll take Jalen Carter off the board with the fifth pick. A guy that could go number 1 in some drafts. Falling to 5 is a boon for Seattle. So I'll take number 6. Go ahead.
That's an off-field issue. It's a big off-field issues with him, what surrounds him. So I mean, it's funny how these things work out, how they change franchises just based on actions months before. So it's just crazy.
It is crazy, and it is a sad situation. But with that said, there's some football to be played, and that's what we're focused on. So we'll look at the Detroit Lions in the 6th spot, and man, talk about a team that I think is now just primed to win the NFC North. With Rodgers gone, and the Vikings still just like kind of like a weird team, like just a weird team that's stuck in the middle with Cousins and Dalvin Cook. Got some good young players, but it's Detroit's time to shine. And being up here at the 6th pick, wouldn't Bijan Robinson look beautiful in a Detroit Lions jersey? Answer is yes, but I just don't think it happens at pick 6. Instead, I think they try and fix a little bit about that defensive backfield. They already got C.J. Gardner-Johnson, which is going to help them out. They'll pair him now with Devin Witherspoon, the quarterback out of Illinois. And I think it's just going to be Detroit just shoring up that one part. That defense is still a little bit, rough around the edges. They got some guys up front, Aiden Hutchinson. Got to build that back end. They'll do it with Witherspoon here.
For the Cardinals, did you take Tyree Wilson there?
I did. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to keep track of yours too. So when we're watching tomorrow night, we can say that is an interesting pick, Witherspoon, because I think it's definitely a need for them. Obviously they just cut ties with Oduka. So Okuda.
Yeah, Jeff
Okuda. From Ohio State. Obviously that didn't work. They ended up trading him, I think, for a 5th rounder to Atlanta. I see what you're saying about Bijan to Detroit, but if DeAndre Swift is healthy, you still have something there. I think you
don't have a workhorse.
What?
You don't have a workhorse.
You don't have a workhorse, but you have the same skill set, but not a guy who can play all 3 downs. And I'm trying to think, did Montgomery go over to Detroit?
I think he did, because they let Jamal Williams go, right?
Jamal Williams is in New Orleans now.
Yep.
So I think David Montgomery is now in Detroit, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't see the fit there. But I mean, that would be interesting. He would be pretty much a healthier and better, workhorse back in Detroit. That would be interesting. But I think defense is definitely the play there. With that being said, I'm going to, as the Detroit Lions take Will Anderson there. You're bringing it from all fronts. They try and bring the pressure up front. Will Anderson's a pivotal player who can do a lot for them. So it just makes sense that he would be the pick there for them. I mean, honestly, you're kind of licking your lips if you're Detroit and Will Anderson falls to you there.
You pair him with Aiden Hutchinson, nobody's gets to pass.
Right. You're not as worried about your cornerbacks.
Yeah. Good point. All right. Great pick there. I'm going to pass the ball to you here with the 7th pick and going over to the Las Vegas. Raiders.
The Raiders. I think here is where we are about to see the run on cornerbacks go. The Raiders are, taking their chance with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think their defense needs a lot of work. I think getting a stalwart guy at cornerback would definitely be big for them. I think they go Christian Gonzalez here. I think they like his athleticism. I think that's what sets him apart from the other cornerbacks. But you take a chance with the guy coming from Oregon. I don't think they've had a cornerback go in the first round either in forever, or it's been a really long time. They usually don't have cornerbacks go that high for them, but this is, I think he's more of he's got the intangibles physically. And I think they're going to take their chances with him.
All right. I like it. And listen, it's a big need for the Vegas Raiders. So, and especially when you're in a division with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, you need some cornerbacks. You definitely do. So I like the pick, but the problem is, as much as they can sell you that Jimmy G is their guy, Jimmy G gets hurt every single year. It's just a fact of life. And I think this is where they get a little dirty. They get a little old Raiders, and they take a risk like they did to Marcus Russell. Remember back that horrible pick back in the day? It won't be horrible, but it's Anthony Richardson. I think that, he feels like a Raider too, right? I just think, his personality, he's got some grade A personality. He's the life of a party. And, having Jimmy G, I do think that is good for Richardson to learn from a veteran like that. And, and then also be the insurance policy. So I think, as much as I agree with you, they need a lot, like offensive line and D-backs. It's a Raiders pick to take this really diamond in a rough chance to be a Jalen Hurts here. I'll go Anthony Richardson at 7. So that brings us to the 8th pick in the draft, man. And I'll tell you, a lot of good players still on the board. And it's talking dirty. It's the dirty birds, right? Atlanta Falcons. Oh, I've been tossing around this idea here. I mean, Stroud's still available for me, but they got Ritter, and I feel like they're not going to do it again. I mean, we've seen the Cardinals do it. They did it from what's his name, and then took Kyler Murray. Remember the kid out of UCLA? It'll come to me, but they did Rosen, yeah, back-to-back years. They did quarterbacks, obviously. So could the Falcons do it? Yes, but in the end, I think they need to draft offensive line. And I think I'm going to go with the Falcons here. They've been very, Kyle Pitts, obviously before that, they picked Ridley. I'm going to go Paris Johnson, offensive tackle, as their pick to try and just build from the trenches.
Okay. As I mentioned, here's the run on cornerbacks. I think they've done so much for their defense, and I think they're really going to try and bring it, because bringing in Okudah was like a shot in the dark. Try and see what we can make of it. But if you had the chance to draft a franchise type of corner, I think this is the spot to do it. To me, I think the Falcons go Devin Witherspoon, cornerback out of Illinois.
Okay. I had him at 6, so I definitely see him as a top 10 player. There were some injury concerns, but they're small, they're minor. I think everybody has checked them out. So I'm with you. This is, I see him as a top 10 pick, and I think that could be a good landing spot for Atlanta. I think they need some defensive line help as well. But with that said, We got 2 picks to the Eagles, so let's go with the Chicago Bears at number 9. And what do you got?
I'm going to follow you up and say this is where the Bears select Paris Johnson. I think they need to solidify that offensive line for Justin Fields, and I think this just makes too much sense.
Yeah, I hear you, and I think you got a good point there. But
nobody ever does what we think they're going to do. So,
yeah, I guess where I'm going to go similar, but I'm going to go Skoronski here. Now, Northwestern is not too far from Chicago, so it's almost like kind of a homegrown kid. And I think they need, obviously, a protector for Fields. He got hit way too much last year. So being that I had Johnson off the board, we're picking the same position, but I'm going to go Skoronski. And for me, that kind of really hurts where I think that's a great spot for the Eagles to take Skoronski. I think he could be the best tackle in this draft, but it's always one pick away. CeeDee Lamb to, some others recently, one pick away. So now we land with the Philadelphia Eagles. And Mark, this board's pretty good. I mean, we're similar. I think the only guy I have off the board that you don't have off the board is Richardson, and you have Gonzalez that I don't have off the board. So otherwise we have 8 of the 9 picks agreed, just maybe not the same spot. And it's just like really tough when I'm looking at what's left here. And I think the Eagles go D-line now. The more I look at what's in, and I could go Gonzalez here. I could see them going D-backs, but after paying back for Bradbury and Slay, I'm not sure they're going to invest in the top 10. So I'm going to go Nolan Smith, the kind of edge rusher out of Georgia. They just seem to really start to take, an affinity to these big Alabama, Georgia type SEC players. So Nolan Smith will be, you don't get Jalen Carter, but you can get someone else to pair with Jordan Davis from that excellent 2021 national championship team.
This is a tough spot for me to be in because sometimes I'm thinking, so my thought is, and we've talked about before, and it seems too obvious and it just seems like it won't happen. Bijan Robinson makes so much sense here. It does and it doesn't. Again, I understand. In the NFL, you don't value running backs high. I totally get it. But I don't think this is where they need to be thinking long term. Like you go and take a tackle there, that's great. You're replenishing for the future. I understand that, but you only have a short-term window. You were lucky to work out Jalen's contract the way that you did. I'm going Bijan Robinson here. I really don't think it's going to be the pick, but part of me is also saying maybe this is the year where they flip the script. I'm going Bijan because you have the opportunity to make an elite offense. They talk about these unique players. The other unique player that they were looking at is Jalen Carter. He's already off the board. And I really think that there's not 9 other teams that are going to be scared, or of the 4 or 5 teams that don't need a quarterback that are going to be scared of his off the field stuff. It's been relatively quiet in regards to it. It hasn't been this dark cloud. So I think Carter is going to be gone before we get there. And he's the other player that it seems like the Eagles would be there for. But with Robinson, you have a chance to make this offense explosive. He's a decent pass blocker, has the ability to get better. He's, got a low center of gravity. I heard Brian Baldinger talking with LaDainian Tomlinson. Tomlinson said he's got all the tools to do it. He's got a low center of gravity, thick legs, breaks a lot of tackles. And I think that you can just really maximize what you have right now. You have, with the fact that because if it was before they either brought back Slayer, if they, didn't have Bradbury return, to me, it's either Gonzalez or Witherspoon or a trade back to get Joey Porter Jr. or to stay there and take Joey Porter Jr. It's one of those 3 cornerbacks. But I think Robinson, it's a short-term site, but you really only need him for 5 years. The running backs they have are just not going to cut it. And I saw something today that was the Eagles always have a running back who they always have or not the Eagles, I'm sorry, Sirianni, and any offense that Sirianni's been in since Indianapolis. Mac, 2-3 years in a row, had 100+ carries more than the RB2. And then this year, Miles Sanders had 200 more carries than the next leading back for the Eagles. The Eagles do need a lead back, even though it seems like they have a committee. This is the perfect time and place to take a freak athlete and take your shot on him. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We've seen things like Jalen Reagor not work, and they almost won a Super Bowl. And that was only, what, 2-3 years ago?
Yeah.
That's why I'm at Bijan Robinson.
All right. My only counter, obviously, I love Bijan Robinson as a football player, but you don't win in the NFL with these styles of backs. He reminds me a lot of Todd Gurley, who was awesome for the first couple of years, and we saw time take its toll. And I just don't see how a team as kind of smart as the Eagles, I'll say, in where they build teams, go after a running back. I would love it. I would love it. I'd love it from the standpoint of, it would make this offense so good, just so good. And but in the end, is it really worth it with what they're trying to build here? I just don't think they do. I don't, but I'm hearing it.
Well, and I'm going to go further. So obviously there's a report that came out recently that the Eagles were hell-bent on taking Christian McCaffrey if they made it to him. It didn't happen, but that was something that they were looking into. A guy who could do a lot of things out of the backfield, 3-down back. Obviously, he's not able to stay healthy, but he was able to even – because he can be a receiver out of the slot too. That's what, you see with McCaffrey. They can run more than a wheel route. I think he can do a lot more than that. And there was another – I lost my other point. I had another point that was similar to that. But if I think –
no, it's all good. Like I said, hey, you're speaking the heart of the Philly fan, and I love it. Do they do it? Man, maybe they throw us a curveball and do it. But it just, I'm taking what they've done in their past. And, last time I've seen them take a running back in the first round was when? I'm trying to remember.
But
maybe
my argument for that is they just made it to the Super Bowl. Like maybe they have a running back who can eat up more, be your, bell cow and do more for you. I think they are able to control the tempo more. Oh, and I was going to say, they had an easier schedule this year. They had a lot of things go their way this year. It's going to be tougher, and they're going to be against a lot of teams that can shoot out. Like they played, not the Patriots are that good, but they're still playing Bill Belichick. They're playing the Chiefs. They're playing a lot of really good teams this season. And I think in the short term, you need a guy like that to support Jalen Hurts. We can't have Hurts doing what he did. And it's kind of the maturation process of a lot of running quarterbacks. Like they eventually are going to drop off from running and they're going to rely more on passing. Bijan Robinson, you don't have to, even though the tush push works, you don't have to do that every single time. You do have another guy that's, strong legs, that is versatile and can do a lot for you. I just really think that in a draft that's not fully like it's top heavy on talent, and probably by the time it gets to them, a lot of their, high end talent that they think could be there could be gone. This is the opportunity to make the most of that, because like I said, I don't think they're going to get what they want to trade back. I don't think they're going to get that.
All right, let's move on to a couple of key picks. We're done with our top 10. First one for me, I circled we had 3 different each in the top 10. So 7 of the 10 players we all think will go, and 3 different. That's pretty good. We're not sitting here reading the same mocks and not having the same opinions. That's a great thing, makes a great show. But for me, I didn't have one of those top 4 quarterbacks go in the top 10. That was CJ Stroud. I do think he ends up at 11 with Tennessee. Malik Willis ain't it, dog. And I think it's a good spot, good opportunity. I don't know what they'll end up doing with Derrick Henry, but they still got some young receiving cord like Treylon Burks. And I think this is – I almost want to say it's the floor, but if the floor is Houston at 12, I think for CJ Stroud, but I think Tennessee will jump up and take him. So I got CJ Stroud. How about you with Anthony Richardson? You didn't have him in your top 10. Where do you think he lands?
So I think that's where he could fall at 11 to Tennessee. I think Tennessee has been trying to trade back. I know this could be a spot. I think if all the quarterbacks are gone, maybe they take a look at Hendon Hooker. But I think Anthony Richardson, again, just like you said, Malik Willis is not the guy. I think they just took a flyer on him to see if they could bring something out of him, but I just don't think he, from what they said, like he more just had some talent, but like he doesn't really understand the NFL offense. I don't think he's going to make it work in that aspect. So I think Anthony Richardson would be a great opportunity for them. If he is what he can be, then they'll find a way to build that team up pretty quickly, especially
All right.
as coach.
Yeah. So looking at that, we have none of us have taken a receiver yet.
Sure.
So give me your thoughts on the first receiver taken and possibly where.
I'm gonna go number 13, the now Green Bay Packers. Right? Is it it's the wait?
They jumped up
to 13. They
jumped
to 15. No, they
jumped up. They
jumped up to 13, right? Yeah, they just flipped 13 and 15. So at 13, I think this is where they take the chance and they draft Jackson Smith, Njigba.
Njigba, yeah.
Njigba. Jackson Smith and Njigba. I think him and Christian Watson, they're really giving Jordan Love a lot to work with. They have Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. I think that's a pretty, again, you can kind of, fault me on my point about Rodgers, but it is a good offense to work with. I think they have two solid young receivers to, make happen with Jordan Love.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about so many different receivers that could go first, but all I can remember is Jackson Smith and Njigba running the Utah defense crazy in a Rose Bowl 2 years ago. He tried to play a little bit to begin this season, tied up his knee, and was just like, you know what, I'm out. I'm saving myself for the draft. Totally get it. And I think in the end, there'll be enough tape out there of him and enough, obviously pro days and such, people being able to see how he's looking live. I do think he ends up number one. I think it's as a receiver. I think it's close. I think Zay Flowers. I think Quentin Johnson. I think those guys are all in play. But I'm going to go Houston at 12, right before where you're talking about with the Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. Houston will miss out on a quarterback for me, but they'll end up with Will Anderson, great defensive player, and then another like a good offensive player, great offensive player. And I'll be with you. Njigba is my first receiver off the board.
It's, Zay Flowers has, he had a really good year, but he's kind of been a draft type guy. I think he's a guy who's moved up. He went from a guy who probably was like mid to early second round, who is now looking like a top 15 type of pick. Not an amazing receiver year, but I think some good, really solid receivers.
Yes.
Another guy to throw in there on who you said, Jordan Addison, I think is going to be, in my opinion, probably a really good slot receiver. I think he has that making. I think a team is going to end up drafting him in the first round. Might be a little high, but I think towards the end of the first round. But I think, you're taking shots with some of these receivers. But I think Jackson seems like the most pro ready. Usually, Ohio State receivers, they pan out in the NFL.
Yeah.
They have a good
track. They had two great ones last, Chris Olave, and obviously the kid from the Jets who won Rookie of the Year.
Garrett Wilson.
Big reason why Aaron Rodgers is where he's at. So one of my picks here that I didn't have going in the top 10, but you did, and I'll comment on him. I'm going to have Bijan Robinson ending up with the Detroit Lions. I said it early when they were sitting there at pick 6, really nice landing spot for him. But yes, they did get David Montgomery. Yes, they lost Jamal Williams. They still have DeAndre Swift, but he just doesn't seem to stay healthy. They can do a few things if they add this piece. They're picking at pick 18. So I'm going to say Bijan falls to the Lions, which, gosh, if they end up with Witherspoon and Robinson, they're just going to be good in general, but they're in really good hands here. So I'll go Bijan goes to Detroit at 8. One question I wanted to ask you, obviously we've gone through, both think Bijan will be the first running back taken, both think Njigba first wide receiver taken. There's a very interesting tight end out there in Dalton Kincaid from the Utah Utes. Mm-hmm. Have you thought about where he could potentially land? Because I'm seeing stories in mocks with him as high as 13.
Yeah, that seems on the higher end. I'm thinking it's probably the late end of the first round pick, just looking at who's there and like who's picking where. I know you teased the Eagles. Did you tease last week the Eagles potentially going with a two tight end set? Did you say
Yes,
something?
I did.
You
I
mentioned
did
it
it.
last week.
Yes, yep.
I don't think that's the case.
Not at 10. Not at 10.
Not at 10. No, at 30.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I mean, I feel like the Bengals make a lot of sense there.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. All right. Well, we've had one quarterback we didn't talk about. So there's a big, rumor out there that this will be a 5 first-round quarterback draft. Hendon Hooker, a little older in age. It kind of lines up to the Kenny Pickett. I almost said Penny Kickett, but let's go with Kenny Pickett. Sounds a little better. But he's even like a tad older than him. You got to send him to a team that's ready to use him either this year or next. Do you see him going in the first round? And if so, where?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple teams that kind of make sense here. I think the clear obvious choice is probably Seattle. I honestly, though, I would look if you're Tampa Bay and another surprise team. Well, there's a couple teams. It's weird because they're all in flex with their quarterbacks.
Yes.
Tampa Bay, Detroit, and Washington. I find them all interesting places. Detroit, it's Jared Goff. I don't know. Like it's a short-term future, in my opinion. He made it work. He may still make it work. I'm interested to see what they do, especially with a better defense. You saw the rise of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Maybe it works there, but I don't know if Jared Goff is somebody that you're putting the future in. You have 2 first-round picks. Maybe this is the opportunity. Tampa Bay, look, they signed Baker Mayfield. You mentioned Kyle Trask. I don't know if either of them work out. Maybe you just, they're just going off of Tom Brady. Maybe they don't want to wait there forever. But like I said, Seattle, I think, makes the most sense as to second draft pick. Kind of, Gino probably is a great mentor for Hendon Hooker here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, looking here, Washington does make sense. It just doesn't seem like a Washington pick.
But it's like they do have Brissett and Hal there, but
that's it. And in the end, I think they have so many holes, especially now that they've come out and said they're not going to, offer the optional year to Chase Young, let him hit free agency.
That's crazy.
That's massive.
I get he gets hurt, but he also was rookie of the year. He's, a great player when he's on the field.
I don't know if Tampa's O-line was like, if it was Brady or the O-line. The O-line was bad, don't get me wrong, but it was injured.
It was injured, very injured.
So I don't know. I think Tampa's got some more issues they want to try and get. I'm going to say Seattle, and my sleeper is Minnesota. I think Minnesota could take a chance at Kirk Cousins. They could get rid of after this year and have no blood lost. So that'll be my sleeper. I think it's a Seattle. I mean, if Seattle runs out of here with Jalen Carter and Hendon Hooker, they're partying in the streets.
Yeah,
I feel that way strongly. I don't think it'll be a distraction for Gino. Gino's had those all his whole career. So, that's where I'll go. All right, so let's jump. We've been doing this for about 45 minutes here. Let's go polish off the NFL draft with the Eagles' last pick here, assuming they stay here at 30. What do you think are kind of – tell me what your pick is, and then I'll tell you mine, and then we could say any other possibilities.
This one is tough. Like, obviously, if I didn't go Bijan Robinson here, I would probably say Jahmyr Gibbs. But I don't know. Like, there's been a lot of people who even think that he's more of the fit. Yep. If there is a possibility that Nolan Smith falls, I think Nolan Smith could end up there.
Oh, I mean, I have Nolan Smith going at 10.
No, so. Of course.
No,
I've
but
seen it polarized.
No, I saw him at 20. I've seen him all around. No, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I love it. I think it's definitely a possibility. That's good pick. If he's there, sky's the limit. I think Gibbs is definitely a possibility. I think just like I spoke with the Bijan stuff, I think the Eagles would probably value better a running back in the second round with 6 picks, saying they don't trade here. I think that's what they'll do. So with that said, they gotta beef up the line. Which line they go for here, I'm not quite sure. But if Brian Bresee from Clemson does slip, and I've seen it. I mean, if you go into DraftKings right now, you'll see his kind of landing spot is around 29. So some even have him in the second round. I like Bresci or Breesy here. So that's what I'm going to go with out of Clemson. He was once, picked like in the top 10, once projected in the top 10. He's fallen a little bit. He had some injuries at the end of his college career, and obviously had some life-changing, his sister dying, I think it was. There's a lot going on in that family, but, I like it. I like Bresci.
There's another player who I think would be really interesting. You speak of lying late, and I think it would work out for the Eagles if they went this route. If they stay with Bijan Robinson, they take Bijan Robinson at 10. And they stay at 30, and they have that pick there. And this guy doesn't get drafted. Darnell Wright, tackle out of Tennessee.
Yeah.
What I've heard is he's a bigger guy. And, Howie was talking about unique guys with unique skill sets. And I think that's somebody that they could have wait in the wings, follow up Lane, and, be the guard to succeed. And then also somebody who can step in for Lane if he gets hurt or what have you. And then you got your running back, and you got what?
What do you mean about Lane? I'm sorry. Darnell's a D tackle, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
Darnell Wright, offensive tackle, Tennessee.
There he is. Oh, okay. Yep, I got it. Yeah, my bad. I was aligned with Cansey out of Pittsburgh.
Gotcha. He's
okay. I'm following you.
I know a lot of people have connected Cansey to the Eagles.
Yeah.
He seems undersized. It's not somebody I would take at 10.
Yeah.
Obviously, somebody they'll probably end at 30, but yeah. But Wright might be good. Yeah. Wright might be a better prospect than either Skoronski or Paris Johnson.
He could be.
Based on size. Yeah, a guy who played in SEC.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one thing we know, it's going to be fun. We'll be out on social media talking it up for sure tomorrow as the draft kicks off. Always exciting, and not always exciting when you were coming off a Super Bowl appearance, because you're usually picking way late and don't have much. But with that top 10 pick, tomorrow's it's going to be fireworks for us and a lot of teams in the NFL. Can't wait for it. I saw this rumor out there that it was McShay and a few others chipping in. Pick a perfect first round, win $3 million. They'll all chip in. Look, it ain't happening. It's like picking a perfect bracket.
No.
Ain't happening.
They don't let you know what they're doing. And I mean, this isn't even something where you could guess, because there's unknown guys that, you think are going late second round that end up at 15. Like, it's just because it's all about who is picking where. And that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier about the, somebody does something. It's like the butterfly effect. It could change somebody's whole life. Jalen Carter does what he does, and somebody can end up flying into the first round that wasn't supposed to be there, get drafted by a team. Like, everything is circumstantial.
Yes.
Right place, right time. Things work. Like, you think about it, a lot of the bust. Imagine if they were drafted by a different team. Could they have actually been a good player? And
yes. I agree with it. Like, does Brady beat Brady in New England?
Right. And think about
it.
And one that I think really hits home for us, and it's not football, but a draft scenario. COVID year, basketball. If Tyrese Maxey, if there is a tournament in 2020, Tyrese Maxey is the type of guy who I think would have had a De'Aaron Fox-like tournament. And I think Maxey would not be there at 20 for us. Yeah. And also think about the Mike Muscala making like 3 threes at the end of the game, the crap game or whatever that ended up getting us.
Up
20 and 21 or whatever.
Yeah.
That whole thing. Like, that is one of those things where we kind of lucked into Tyrese Maxey, and it's been wonderful. Like a situation like that. COVID happened, but we got Tyrese Maxey. Like, those are like, I don't know. It just made me think. I was thinking about that the other day.
I love it.
Tyrese Maxey.
No, you're right. You're right. You're so right. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun going into tomorrow and seeing where this all kind of lays itself out. And as we build, listen, this Eagles team is probably not as well built as the one going into the 2022 season. But it's got a chance to still get better a little bit here. And then, listen, we didn't get James Bradbury until after the draft. We didn't get C.J. Gardner until after the draft. There are still pieces for Howie to find to fit in this puzzle and make it whole again. So with that said, let's move off the NFL draft and let's go quickly in a couple other sports here. We'll start with those Philadelphia 76ers. You know, the sweep of Brooklyn. Mark, you said it in our opening monologue here. Only team to sweep in the first round. When Denver didn't get that sweep, the Sixers were the only team. And, you know, normally, you know, you get a little worried about like, oh, time off. Not basketball. Baseball, yes.
Yeah.
Not basketball, not football. I'm okay with time off, especially when you have a big man like Embiid missing game 4. And then, you know, we're just not sure where he's at health-wise, but every single extra day is another chance that he'll be playing.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, I think they're looking, it's really like a 2-week recovery without anything done.
Yep.
It's going to be 10 days. It definitely helps. You know, there's concerns like he won't be able to play in the first. I think they're going to see what he can do. I think you know, there were videos of him today at practice just doing light stuff, not really practicing, like he considered non-practicer, but he, you know, was doing things and just kind of working the knee just to see where he's at. I think he's going to play. I think they're going to, you know, take their chance, and I think he's going to play. I think he's going to be okay. He's going to have to put it together. I don't think he's going to be the one to say, I can't go, if he weren't to be the one to go. I think that would be a team decision, but I really think that, you know, it all worked out again, thanks to Trae Young, that we don't have to play this earlier than need be. This is the latest time possible that they could start the series, and 10 days is a good amount of time for him to go.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, if he doesn't make it in game 1, you know, he's out there by game 2 at the latest.
Yes.
But I just find like is 1 or 2 extra days. If you can't make game 1, how does that change? Like, it's like the Giannis thing, right? You know, they knew they could kind of gamble. Well, they thought they could kind of gamble game 3 and say, hey, you know, game 2 wasn't going to make. But game 3, you know, he was shooting around. No, we'll be all right. And then, you know, what happened? They blow game 4 to the Jimmy game. I think the Sixers could learn a little bit about that. You can't gamble any game. If you're 80% Joel Embiid, you got to play. You just got to play.
Sure.
You know, now this, you know, if the Heat freaking win the series, and they're sitting here giving the Bucks all they can get in game 5.
They're up 2 right now, you know, 50 left in the third. Yeah.
If they win that series and the Knicks just took care of Cleveland, you get over Boston, you're in the NBA Finals. I'm with all due respect to Miami and New York, the Sixers are in the NBA Finals if they get through Boston. I'm fully convinced of that. But that means even more that he has to play right away. I just think you can't give games away. Now, speaking of that, the Celtics look more vulnerable than they have probably all season. You know, they did have a little bump in the road, you know, at the 2/3 pole, and, you know, Milwaukee passed them and they could never catch back up. Look, they look vulnerable. Atlanta winning 2 games. Atlanta winning a game in Boston without DeJounte Murray. Atlanta, they got Trae Young, Bogan, Bogdanovic, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins. That's a team that beat Boston.
Do you remember, like, even like a month ago, they were talking about the whole, like, Trae Young's going to be gone after this season. Like, you know, all the strife that was going on. Like, you know, Quinn Snyder kind of came in and put this thing back together a little bit.
Well, they played 500 ball, but
right.
They didn't play like they
right now to be doing what they're doing with the Celtics. I mean,
I agree.
You got to give them a lot of credit. They were kind of left for dead.
No, I agree with what they're doing now, but they really, like Quinn even said, like they ended up in the 8 seed when they had chances to get up to the 7 or 6.
I mean, we had high praise for the Hawks going into the season, and
we thought they'd be better. Absolutely. I thought the Hawks would be in a 4-5 kind of scenario. I did. Cleveland, I always thought would be right there, but I think the Knicks and Brooklyn probably. Oh, I guess Brooklyn at the beginning of the year we thought would be there. So maybe I thought Atlanta 5-6, but definitely thought they'd be better than the Knicks. Better, but they don't take this, right? Do they get to a game 7?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
Boston has to be better than that.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, a couple other things in the NBA. Memphis held on tonight. And held on is an exaggerated term. They did win by margin, but they got to game 6. Listen, they're done. They're cooked. They gave 2 games to win this series. They gave away game 1 and they gave away game 4. They should have won that game in LA. And for all it's worth, Dylan Brooks is a complete buffoon. And I can't stand that piece of you know what. You can talk and put glasses on when you win 1 game, and then you can't show up to the media when you lose the 2 in a row. You're a complete asshole, and you've blown your team up. And I hope you never sign. And by the way, you shoot 30% for the whole series. At one point tonight, you were 3 for 13 again. You haven't shot over 40% in 1 game. Your mouth doesn't back up any check you catch. You're what's bad in everything in this world, and from a sports perspective.
Yes,
from criminals. But dude, that's been bad, man.
No, they got cocky. They got full of themselves. I mean,
they did.
Morant had to be kind of brought back down to earth, and Dylan is up there, but he's kind of getting the business now. I mean, if Morant talking about he's only worried about the Celtics, like
early in the season,
yeah. I
remember that.
Big fall from grace. You lose to this Lakers team because the Lakers are not good. I don't care that it's LeBron James. It's just they're not.
They're not great, but they're not. They're good. They're not a 7 seed normally, but they're not great. Like Phoenix looks really good.
Yes.
No, I know it was the Clippers without Kawhi and PG, but they look good. The Warriors Kings, both teams look good. That's a great series. Kings had a really good shot. If Harrison Barnes could have hit 1 out of 2 shots to be up 3-1. Now they might go down 3-2. And obviously Denver was impressive. A team that people aren't talking about, but they're the 1 seed. I don't know how the Lakers get through all those teams. I can't say that.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. But then back in the East, we'll keep an eye on what happens with the rest of that. Let's go over the Phillies real fast while we close out this show. 4 out of 5. They won 3 straight against Colorado at the end of that series. Lost last night to the Mariners with Bailey Falter on the mound, but came back with a really nice come-from-behind victory. They were 1-11, trailing in the 7th inning or later, and get that second win now, scoring 2 in the 8th tonight off the Seattle Mariners to win 6-5. Alvarado came in, closed it out. Looks great in that position. I mean, they kind of mixed up the saves. Kimbrel has 2, Dominguez has 1, but Alvarado is the guy when healthy and ready. That's a big win tonight.
It is a big win. It's much needed. The one thing that I'm disappointed about, Walker didn't have a great start.
No, but he left with right forearm stiffness.
Okay.
So I don't know if
But he gave up another 2 home runs. He only made 5 runs, 5 earned runs. I mean, it's walks for a
great slam. Then back-to-back homers were the. But was the right arm stiffness there?
Has it been there? Has it been there from the World Baseball Classic? I don't know.
That's the only thing I'm debating. But it's not good.
It's not good.
While we got Ranger Suarez getting his
and he's in rehab. Doing starts.
Yeah. We might be losing another one. The good news is they finally won a NOLA start, right? He lets up 3 in the first, but they hang on and win against Colorado 4-3. The pitching's got to come around, but Walker is a huge disappointment right now.
Yeah.
Huge, I agree.
Yeah, it's been hard.
Yeah, maybe there's a good chance I'm going to tomorrow's game. We'll see how that goes. 1:00 game down at the bank before they run out to play the Houston Astros this weekend. So, 1 game under 500. They're there. They're pushing. Yeah. They're pressing. Stott looks great. Marsh looks great. A lot of good things.
Homer, 2 homers this week, so that's good.
Yeah, really good stuff from the Phillies. Castellanos, obviously, off to a way better start. So, we're getting there. But talking about getting there, we'll see how the Eagles get there tomorrow, whether they pick at 10, whether they drop back. Mark and I will be well connected on social media talking about it. Hope you are too. Mark, you got anything before we get out of here?
No, everybody go out and pre-order your Bijan Robinson Eagles jerseys.
Look, I can't even comment. I hope you're right. I'll put it that way because I love a good running back in this. I wanted Steven Jackson back years ago, and
jeez,
and they didn't do it then. It broke my heart. So we'll see if they get it right or wrong this year. But can't wait to talk about that and more next week on 4th and Go with me, Dave, him. That's Mark. Until then, this is episode 60. 61. We'll be back next Wednesday for another Winning Wednesday here on the Heat Ratio Sports Network. But until then, enjoy your Philly sports. It's going to be a fun, busy next 3-4 weeks here of great Philly sports, and we'll be here to talk about it with you on YouTube, on Twitter, on all your favorite spots. Until next week, we are